Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have back in the studio with us our good buddy. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Patrick Doyle from Veritas Counseling. And we're here to talk about something today that, believe it or not, I think everybody struggles with. And the hardest part is you probably won't admit it. But in most cases, addictions get accelerated into real problems. And we're talking about addictions. What are they? How can you recognize them? And what do you do about them?
Yeah.
And Patrick, I got to tell you, the limited counseling I do, internally I become extremely frustrated dealing with people. I know they got an addiction. I try to do everything I can to get them to recognize it. And they're in such denial. The yeah, but answer would drive a guy like me crazy. Now, you're the professional counselor. I'm a lay counselor. And I just as soon go have a root canal.
Yeah. Well, it's very, I mean, I've said this many times. If you don't love addicts, you don't want to work with them.
Okay.
Because it's very difficult, because it's hard to, we have a saying in recovery that, you know how addicts lie, you know how you know an addict's lying?
The
lips are moving.
Okay.
Because as an addict myself, historically, my number one goal was to make sure I could continue to do what I was doing. But I didn't know that. I wasn't conscious of that. So, the denial is so convincing because the addict generally believes what they're telling you. They don't. One of the acronyms for denial, didn't even know I was lying.
Wow.
because the denial is necessary for my survival, and so I have to convince myself first. So the first person we lie to as addicts is ourselves. And so, when I'm, neck deep in my life swirling down the commode, I can't be aware of that. Otherwise, I would probably do something else. So denial is a necessary part of addiction. And so here's, we used to have a debate years ago when I worked in the treatment industry. And there was always this debate about what's the gateway drug. It's marijuana, it's, whatever. I'm strongly convinced in my own mind that the gateway drug is tobacco. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the substance, but let's say somebody who's 15 or 14 or 13, I mean, they smoke a cigarette, right? What do they got to do? What do they have to do to get the cigarette? They have to lie. They have to hide. They have to practice some kind of denial.
Wow.
So the gateway drug is not really about the substance, in my opinion. It's about the system you develop to rationalize, minimize, justify, and deny reality to continue to do what you know is going to harm you.
Wow, I never thought of that. So,
because the denial system is the thing that's necessary to maintain the addiction. I mean, how many times have you and I talked to someone who's experiencing severe life trouble, and they're like, "What? It's not me. What about this and what about that?" And it's not. They can't take responsibility for it. They are responsibility Teflon. Whoop. Nothing sticks. And so that denial structure is the thing that allows addiction to continue. If they were playing in reality, they wouldn't keep harming themselves. Right?
No.
And on the other side of that, the other thing I see, I've never met an addict who wasn't wounded in their soul, emotionally, spiritually. And so part of what happens is the addiction becomes a way to cope with the pain. And it starts off as something that's pain relief. And then if a little is good, then a lot's better, right? So as they deal with their pain, so for me, I was abused as a kid. When I was, 10 or 9 or 8 or something, one of my sisters was in a severe car accident, completely, drunk out of her mind. I think it was Quaaludes too back in those days. She was in the hospital, and then she came to my parents' house and lived for like a month in the bed. She was so broken from all the injuries.
Wow.
She smoked like a chimney, and so did my mom. And so she was laying in the bed, and one day I go in there and I say, "Hey, can I have one of those cigarettes?" She's like, "Sure." Yeah. She gives me a cigarette. I smoke that thing down. I go outside and puke. And I was like, that's the end of that. Yeah. I never once smoked another cigarette. Never, haven't to this day. I just never did. Now, I can tell you when I was 10, the first time I smoked a joint, I didn't have that experience. I had a much better experience. And it made me feel good. And it made me not feel the pain I was in. And I was like, well, hey, this is pretty good. And thus started a relationship, right? Because it worked. And this is the thing that people that people who are addicts will tell you, that, look, no one ever became an alcoholic because alcohol didn't work. You know, no one ever became a pothead because pot didn't have some use to them. The problem is when it starts there, with addiction, is that it doesn't stay there. When it starts to consume your life, you start to have, and here's where I see addiction having the most profound negative impact, and that is on your relationships. Because my dad was a full-blown alcoholic, never lost a job. I don't know how he ever got a DUI, because I think that guy thought curbs were to tell you where the road was ending.
Wow.
You know, it wasn't because he wasn't drunk. He drove drunk more than he drove sober. Never got a DUI, never lost a job. You know, stellar military career, decorated soldier. But he was an alcoholic. So people would say, well, he's not an alcoholic because, look, he was able to function. Just because somebody's able to function doesn't mean that they're not addicted. 95% of the addicts in our country, Perry, are functional.
Yeah.
Only 5% are Skid Row.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of the problem lies outside of a city where people are begging for money or completely destroyed their lives with heroin or whatever. So, you know, the idea that somebody's functional, it isn't the issue. Here's where I see it show up most profoundly, as I said, is in relationships. Addicts, here's one of our sayings. Addicts don't have relationships. They take hostages.
Yeah.
And so if you're in a relationship with someone and it feels more like a hostage situation, and you're always, you know, on the defensive or trying to figure out or trying to make them happy, or, you know, addicts will explode, manipulate, cry, you know, beg, plead, lie, whatever it is they have to do to get you to do what they want you to do. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you're playing with a set of morals. They will abscond with the morals. So you're trying to play within a frame. They don't play within that frame. So it always puts you in a position of vulnerability because the truth doesn't matter.
All right, we're dealing with addictions today, and it's a big topic, and so often we will regulate it to alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the two biggies. Let me throw out just a couple words here. Obesity, sex, religion, narcissism.
Yes.
Could those be addictions?
Oh, well, so let's define addiction.
I say obesity is a result of an addiction.
Yes, absolutely.
Sex is addiction.
Yep.
Religion could be.
Absolutely, I've seen it every day.
And narcissism.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that play in?
Let me define addiction, because I kind of veer off the path of normalcy here with some of my colleagues on addiction, because for years I worked in the treatment world, and I ascribed to the disease concept of addiction. It's a disease, and I don't ascribe to that anymore. In the 60s, the federal government was legislated that alcoholism was a disease, and really, when you do your research, what you'll find is one of the main reasons why that happened was they did that so that the federal government could pay for treatment for Vietnam vets.
All right, got it.
Okay, so I'm not a big proponent of the disease concept. Now, it looks very much like a disease because addiction does have a significant pathology. In other words, it's going to do the same thing, which mimics a disease, but I think, unlike a disease, it is not centered in biology. I think addiction is centered in pain, emotional and spiritual. So here's my thing. All addiction, let's change that word to compulsion. Okay, so when you're compulsive about something, when you bring up food, when you bring up sex, when you bring up religion, when you bring up money, when you bring up sleep, when you bring up video games, when you bring up TV, when you bring up isolation, I mean, the list could be endless, right? So you can do anything on a compulsive level to a place where it starts to harm you. That's what they're all saying, even good things can become bad, right? So too much work is good, but too much, you start to harm yourself. So if you're compulsive, I believe that all compulsion is the result of a lack of peace.
All right, so is a lack, I'm writing down here, is a lack of peace the result of an emotional injury?
Usually. Okay. Now remember that emotional injury is in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
And it could be only a perception. They could have perceived something.
I get that, and that's legitimate to them.
It's legitimate, so we have to live with it. We have to deal with it, because if we deny it, then that's just another harm, right? So, if when you really read the Alcoholics Anonymous big book, what you find is that Bill W. was really talking about dealing with the stuff that was chasing you. The first 3 steps are about getting square with God.
Yeah.
Then the 4th step is making a fearless, searching moral inventory, looking at what you've done and making amends. This is like a biblical process, right?
Yeah,
but you have to deal with what's chasing you.
Right.
If you don't do that, I would say you're going to be compulsive, addicted about something. And so when I have peace, I don't have to go alter.
Right.
But when I don't have peace, I'm anxious, I'm looking, I need some sort of distraction, I can't sleep. I talk to people all the time that they cannot go to sleep without a fan on, without TV on, without the radio on, without some distraction.
Yeah.
Okay, because their internal world is very unsettled.
Right.
And so, as someone who has lived in that world and, was a victim of that, what I see is that, God comes and gives me an opportunity to have peace because of what He did, not because of what I did. Oh, okay, well that's hard to take in, because as somebody who was abused and lived in a difficult environment and had to survive, I feel like I got to take care of it. Well, good luck, I mean, how many of us have been able to take care of it on our own? We need help.
All right, we're dealing with addictions today, Patrick Doyle, and we're going to take a quick break. We come back. I want to go back to the core of addictions, which is the emotional injury.
Okay.
If an addicted person doesn't see that,
right,
all the other things we're talking about really don't take effect.
Exactly.
So the question I would have is, you can ponder this while we take the break. How do you get instead of talking about their addiction,
right,
how do you get them to talk about
what the cause is?
The emotional injury.
Yeah, okay.
We'll be right back with Patrick Doyle.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at the Dove TV. Did you know that when you support the Dove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and Patrick Doyle's in the house, and he heads up Veritas Counseling. The number is something.
622-6018.
622-6018. That's area code 541. And we're talking about addiction, and it comes in many forms. Most of the time when we talk about addiction, we're thinking drugs and alcohol, and those are certainly legitimate, and they're very
real,
addictive, and they're very damaging.
Right.
But addiction can be anything that you can't say no to.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd be surprised what it may be. But the core of addiction is usually an emotional injury, or injury on top of injury on top of injury.
Right.
And that goes back to something you and I have talked before about, and that is a perceived or real injustice.
Yes.
Now, how do you get an addict? I mean, because if you and I sat down with an addict and we know that they're hooked on, say, alcohol,
right,
and we start attacking that, we're not going to we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, we may get some slowdown or recognition, but if we don't go back to what the injury was, it could be a waste of time. And so the question is, you as a counselor, how do you get the addict to look there?
Well, so first of all, I usually just try to get their story, which is like, how did you get here? What's happened? What's the thing that's most prevalent? And then from that, you find clues that help you weave your way through. But here's the other thing. If somebody's been wounded and then they've been running or covering with some compulsive behavior, trust is going to be low. Addicts don't trust because they have to be in control so that they can continue to manage their world, because it all depends on that. So just so you know, if you're going to get involved with someone, this is a long haul deal. This is not a quick fix. This is not, we have a couple of conversations and everything's better. This is not, we have a prayer. Addiction is a very difficult, long-term process.
If the addict always has to be in control, and that makes total sense, by the way, because the moment they're out of control, then they run the risk of getting caught.
And or not having what they need.
All right, so in that attempt to be in control comes manipulation.
Absolutely.
And there's another emotion that to me always surfaces, and that's anger.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to control people.
Okay.
You control people with anger. So you know, I see it with people all the time. They go and they want their spouse or their friend or their parents or their siblings or whoever to do something for them. And they say, finally the person that's been the person that's gotten used a bunch of times finally starts to say no. Well, as soon as you say no, then they flip out. And they're like, well, and they get angry and they yell and they threaten, oh, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm never going to, this time it'll be different, and da, 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 da. And so they push back with anger because whatever it is, the button that they know, that whatever button they find to push to get you to do what they want, that's the button they're going to push. Which is why with family, friends, caring individuals around addicts, the most loving thing we can do is draw a line and keep it. Because the pain of loss of relationship is the only thing that I believe will bring about the level of conviction and or pain that will move somebody into some reality and away from their denial.
You run the risk at that point of them blaming the other person.
Well, they will.
I mean, if you draw the line, they're going to blame you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If somebody doesn't draw the line, I can guarantee the outcome of the addict. Uninterrupted, I guarantee that the addict's life is going to be shortened. We used to say there's 3 destinations for an uninterrupted addiction: death, jail, or an institution.
Okay.
Because the out-of-control life always leads to something like that. And you look at somebody like, say, Michael Jackson. Fame, money, talent, had everything a person could want, but was highly compulsive to the point where he's having, anesthesia administered to him so he can cope, right? Because he's got so much. I mean, I've read an article, one of the reasons why Michael Jackson had so many nose surgeries is his dad used to tell him he had a big nose. So he's going to write that. There's another compulsion. Did he go too far? Well, absolutely. What was the cause of it? Well, the cause of it was his abusive dad, right? But we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is, the end result. But it started way back with all that pain. And so then you just see it morphing into more things. And because he had more power and more money and more freedom, he could get away with more things, and it killed him early. But, there's no reason for a guy with that much talent and that much, fame to die so young of that. But you see it in Hollywood. You see it all the time. You see it with rich people all the time. You see, so it's not just, we're not just talking about people who are unskilled or, whatever, uneducated. You're talking about, addiction does not have a boundary. Mm-hmm. It will attach itself to anyone. And so, part of what I'm hoping to do is also help people who are around the addict, because addicts aren't the ones who usually show up in my office. And when they do, it's because somebody has a gun to their head, and metaphorically speaking, they're getting their arm twisted, or they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their marriage or their kids or whatever. So they show up, but they're not showing up because they want to change. They're showing up so they can manipulate the situation to keep their power, keep their position, keep doing what they want to do. So those around addicts become the people who end up seeking help. They see the trouble. They go ask for help. They start to rally the troops. And so here's the thing I want to tell people. Look, I wish this wasn't true, okay, but it really is true. People die in addiction. I've treated thousands of people over the years, and I've watched people with lots of treatment go right to their graves, never getting sober. My own parents both died from alcoholism. They died from alcoholism. They didn't get a rain check. They didn't get saved. They died. My mom died when she was 52 years old. Okay? So here's the other thing. We want to think that, it'll all turn out. Well, I hope so, but that's not always the case. And if you allow the addict to leverage you with that fear, you'll never get out. You have to be willing to accept that as one of the possible outcomes if you make a boundary.
When do you think an intervention is required?
As soon as possible.
All right. Are there levels of intervention?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and an intervention, so we explain this to those watching and listening, is where you basically put together a group.
Yep. Of caring people.
Caring people. You put the addict in the middle. It's a surprise attack, so to speak.
Yeah. They wouldn't come to one they know.
No, yeah. And you basically say, look, we're in this room because we care, and your next step is determine whether or not we're going to be in your life. I mean, that's basically where you're going with it.
Bottom line, yeah. So because once you cut off all the support mechanisms, the addict is faced with some difficulty.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing everybody wants to avoid. Everybody wants the elevator to stop way up here and not down here.
Yeah.
And so we keep lying to ourselves, because here's the other thing, that if you're in the life of an addict long enough, you become sick yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to rationalize your own feelings.
You're finding a place to exist.
Yeah. Right. So I wish that there was some guaranteed magic solution, but the truth is there's not. And so the person who's in the addict's life has to maintain their own sanity, because that's the key to the addict getting better. If you get sucked into their world and you start to lose your sanity, then what hope do they have? Because they're in abject denial. They don't even know what reality is. I mean, you would have to show me a video, Perry, of certain parts of my life historically for me to even know what the truth was, because I was loaded, I was a liar, I didn't know what end was up, I didn't care about anything but myself. And so one of the things about addiction is having an addiction by its very nature makes you 100% self-focused.
You know, the other thing I've learned about dealing with addicts, certainly not at the level you do, but let me fast forward and you get on the other side of it.
Yeah.
By God's grace, something happens and you get on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I have noticed that they will, when they finally wake up or snap out of it, whatever the case is, they knew all along they were doing wrong.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that's the God part of us.
Yep,
because there's this meter in us, the God meter, saying,
Spirit.
Yes, the Spirit of God. Yeah, it's saying, no, and yet they're doing it. And one of the greatest healings is that when they finally are at peace with God.
Yes. Which you will find is the first 3 steps of AA.
Okay. All right, let me take a break. We come back. We're dealing with addiction. This is big stuff, and I think what we're trying to get you to realize is that addictions can be anything. Right. And if you don't have any peace in your life, there's a good chance that you're addicted. Now, God doesn't use guilt.
No.
But He uses conviction.
Yes.
And maybe we need to talk about the difference between the two.
I think we should.
Because a lot of people are doing it and they feel guilty.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the trick of the enemy, just beat you up and keep you locked in.
It also helps you continue.
Okay. All right. Patrick Doyle, who's addicted to me. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at the Dove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on the Dove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back with Patrick Doyle, and we're dealing with a subject that is prevalent today. It's addictions. You may not, I'm not trying to say everybody's addicted.
No.
But if you don't have real peace in your life, if there are those moments where you can be still and know, there's a good chance that something's robbing you, and it could be food, it could be it could be these stupid devices. I mean, let's face it, we're addicted to them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. I like the new thing now when you go to a restaurant, everybody puts their phone on a stack on the table, and the first one that reaches it has to pay the bill. That's the new thing. We're trying to figure out how to disconnect all of these connections. It certainly could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be sex, it could be religion, it could be shopping, it could be all kinds of things. Eating. Now, let me ask you this. On top of the fact that you know something's not right and you don't have that peace of God in your life, you don't have that be still and know moment, there is this two emotions, guilt and conviction.
Yeah.
And we feel guilty. We know we feel guilty, and we know something's wrong, but we spend more time trying to cover it up.
Yeah.
What's the difference between guilt and conviction?
Okay, guilt and shame, which addicts are full of, pushes me away from God. It pushes me away from people. I feel hopeless and worthless.
Right.
Conviction, on the other hand, while it might be very painful, I might be searingly hurting from the realization of my conviction, draws me to God, draws me to people. I feel a sense of hope and a sense of value.
Okay. All right.
So when God convicts, it's not usually very pretty. When God convicts, it's usually fairly painful, because you start to, the blinders of your denial start to come down, and then all that stuff you've rationalized, minimized, justified, spiritualized, denied, starts to come to the fore, and then you start to see the consequences of I did, and it's very difficult. And I don't think, apart from God's help, anybody's going to do that. I don't think that's something a human naturally leans toward. I think we lean away from that stuff.
At this point, pride becomes your enemy, right?
Yeah. I like one of the things that C.S. Lewis said. He said, pride is the ultimate anti-God state of being.
Bingo.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So, yes, it becomes our enemy, because if I am the most important thing, then wouldn't that be defined as idolatry? Mm-hmm. I'm worshiping myself, And so, but remember, no one ever gets to a place of being out of control.
Okay, it's gradual.
And so you have to, like I was talking about before, you have to build the system of rationalizing, minimizing, justifying, denying. And so here's what happens is that,
you become numb to conviction.
Yes, and you have to build that system, because that conviction stands between you and what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I know from my own life, I'm sitting here as an example of God's mercy, not my goodness.
Yeah.
I've battled major addictions on multiple levels. And so this is why it's important to me, because I've seen the destruction. And like I said, I lost both my parents, and I have 2 siblings that are, I think, probably dying from addiction right now. And I've talked to thousands of addicts over the years. I've worked for 25 years in treatment. I've spent a lot of my life working on this issue, and I love addicts. I don't have any judgment for an addict, and I'll tell you this: I'm not going to be easy on an addict, because it's not loving.
Yeah.
And this is where I think the church.
Yeah, you need to drill that down.
Yeah,
a bit.
the church we fail because we want to be nice. We don't want it to be difficult. But listen, me getting sober was a very difficult process, and it was a lot of wrestling. And fortunately, there were some people in my life that were willing to just tell me the truth without any varnish. And you know what? I hated them for it initially. Yeah. So I tell this story a lot to illustrate this point. Years ago, when I worked at Genesis Recovery Center years ago, and there's this guy who came into treatment, and he was mad as a hornet. He did not want to be there, but he was leveraged into it by his family.
Oh, boy.
So he comes into group, and he's just like, I'm trying to work with him, and I got this whole folder full of family information, so I know all the stuff he's done, and I just keep poking at him, and he says, he shows me in so many ways, like, if we weren't in a controlled environment, I would beat your butt. And I'm like, So, he said very clearly, I don't like you. I think you're wrong. You're full of yourself. You just on me. And I was like, I just got to keep pecking away at the truth, see what happens. Long story short, and without all the details, at the end of every person's stay at Genesis, we did a graduation ceremony if they made it, right? And we would get the whole group together and invite their family and all their friends, and everybody would get up and give a speech about who this person was and what they saw happen. And so this guy made it. He made it to the end. And so when he got his coin, he thanked me. And he said, I just want to thank you because you were the first person that ever loved me enough to tell me the truth. And he says, and I know I didn't make it easy on you, but I think you saved my life.
Wow.
You know, and I just want to impress on people that that's important. If you just keep cowing, that's not love. That's you being selfish. Now again, if God doesn't convict you to be involved with an addict, please don't.
Well said. Because usually you just
They will
flip
grind-
out an opinion,
Yeah.
and it's gas on the fire.
And they will grind you into dust.
Yeah.
They have way more motivation and time than you do.
Yeah, well said. And I
so-
think, you need to deal with people that
Yeah.
are called to do it.
And there are people like Doug Gould
Yeah. Oh,
and Foundations for Recovery.
oh, what a great outfit.
Great organization. There's Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
You know, there's AA. There's Set Free.
Yeah.
Is doing some work. You know, so there's lots of options. But what I don't want people to do is in their attempt to help. If your attempt to help is more about you than them, they will sniff you out and grind you into dust. The other thing I notice about addicts, I've never met an addict that wasn't very aware. They know stuff. They feel stuff. They sense stuff. They might not act like they do, but they do. And so they're not easily manipulated. You know, they're gonna smell you out if you don't care. And that's the thing that I would want people to look in the mirror and say, am I doing this because I really care? Are I doing this because I'm afraid? Am I doing this because I want to, you know, stop them? Am I doing this? You know, if your motive is love, then I think you'll have the staying power. But if you don't love and you just start getting into a pitched battle with them, you'll never win.
Patrick, let me ask you this. Is self-centeredness an addiction or an indication of addiction?
Well, you can't be an addict and not be self-centered.
Because one of the hardest things is when you're dealing with people, and whether you're talking to them or you're corresponding with them, is the word I.
Yeah.
And when it's I this, I that, I this, I that, all of a sudden you realize, well, wait a minute, you're in the center of the universe here, and I don't, you know, you're not letting anybody in. It's all about you. I mean, what is that?
Well, there's lots of reasons for that. A couple of the prominent ones is, one is self-protection.
Okay.
I have so much stuff that I'm trying to protect myself from. I mean, like I've said before, addiction by its very nature makes me 100% self-focused, because I have to protect myself. I have to protect my ability to do what I got to do. I got to protect myself from you finding out the truth. I gotta.
Well,
right. And so.
I'm sure glad God called you. I'm running out of patience.
Yeah. Well, but so here's the thing. I don't think it's going away. And this is the other thing I just want to say honestly to people. Look, you know, it's been going on for centuries. This isn't new. We have a lot more opportunity now because we have lives that are much more, they're easier. So you have time to be distracted.
Does an addict ever see themselves healed? I mean, if they're sitting in front of you, they're either there by force or they're there by their own desire.
Sometimes, yeah.
Are they afraid of the unknown, which is I can be healed and I don't know what that's like, therefore I'm afraid of it?
Well, on another subject, I think this is maybe a show all in itself, but I think one of the scariest things humans ever do is be loved.
Be loved?
Yeah. Because to be loved means I have to be vulnerable. And I think humans have a natural aversion to vulnerability.
The number one emotion in America today is loneliness.
Yes, because we don't have, in America, our relational reality is pretty sad.
That's an indictment on the church.
It absolutely is.
We're supposed to love.
I know, but
they
we don't.
They don't feel it?
No.
My stars.
Part of the reasons what I see in my office all the time is that, you know, people who are in the church, good, well, rounded, evidently, upstanding members of the church come to my office to get counseling under the cloak of confidentiality. They can't go to their church and tell the problem.
Yeah. That's the call we get.
Yeah, why not? Well, because it's not safe.
It's not safe.
And so you look at and see, here's the other thing. Who did Jesus hang out with? Addicts.
Yeah.
Why? He knew what
they were more transparent than the others.
Yeah, and they knew they were needy.
Yeah.
And so when you start acting like you don't have any needs, you're already going to go down you're going down a path that's going to end up harming you. So if the church isn't a safe place, and thank God for things like Celebrate Recovery and those kind of things that the church has sort of taken a stand and said, okay, we got to stop acting like this is some moral issue. Okay, does it have a moral component? Yes, but it's not. It doesn't. You're not. So the guy who's lying to his wife about his porn addiction while he's the leader of the church, is he better off than the guy who's secretly an addict?
No.
But see, people make those weird false distinctions. Listen, everybody I know is a sinner.
Last time I looked.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have any platform to stand on to look down my nose as an addict. I'm sitting here as somebody who should be with them. God's mercy is how I survived. I didn't survive because I did all the right things. I resisted healing most of the way.
All right, let me take a break here. I want to read to you a scripture when we come back.
Awesome, I like that.
Okay, and have you respond to it,
okay?
All right, we'll be right back with Patrick Doyle.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at the Dove TV. Compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at the Dove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
All right, welcome back, and we're talking to Patrick Doyle today, and he's with Veritas Counseling and taking on a subject that, he's a living example of something I've said for 32 years on the Dove.
Yep.
Whatever God saves you from or brings you through, He usually turns you around and makes you a minister to. Voila, Patrick Doyle. And we're dealing with addictions, and he himself has come through those levels, and so often we equate addictions to the biggies.
Yeah.
But they can be a lot of little things in our life. And ask yourself this, are you at peace?
Yeah. What disturbs your peace?
Yeah, and what disturbs your peace? And do you have those moments where you can be quiet and know, be still and know, as the scripture says, I think you've done an outstanding job in describing what it is and its attachments to our lives and the denial and all the manipulation and all those things. And it doesn't make counselor's task any easier. I want to read a scripture to you.
Okay.
Found in James chapter 5, and it says, "Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church." Okay, elders of the church. "Let them pray over him, anointing with oil," type of the Holy Spirit, "in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick."
Yeah.
Now, you need to understand something. It doesn't say heal there yet.
No.
It just says save the sick. And it goes on to say, "And the Lord shall raise them up, and if they committed any sins, they shall be forgiven." That's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
Now, we're still praying. The elders still got their hands on the sick person.
Right.
"Confess your faults one to another, and pray for one another, that you may be healed." That's the first time you see the word healed in that scripture. It's after confession.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen that as a counselor?
Absolutely. I mean, Jesus also said, "If you hold to my teachings, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free."
Right.
We always say the last part of that verse.
Right. The truth will set you free.
We don't talk about the clause, though. It says, "If you hold to my teachings, then you will know what the truth is, and that'll set you free." Well, what are his teachings? You better do it right or I'll come get you.
He loves you.
I'm out to get you.
Yeah.
No. It's good news. He's like, I see that you're stuck. I see that you're overwhelmed. I see that you can't help yourself. I'm going to come, and on your behalf, I'm going to take what's necessary, do what's necessary, and save you. I didn't ask for permission.
Let me ask you this then. Can conversion take place without change?
No.
Okay. So
that's the sign of conversion. It's a sign of God's Spirit, is that you are convicted. And this is what I've said before. We talked about this a couple weeks ago or a month ago or whatever, but I say this a lot, and I really don't any longer make my decision about somebody's Christianity based on the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? because all of the fruits of the Spirit can be faked. You and I have seen it 1,000 times if we've seen it once, from the pastorate down to the whatever.
That's so powerful.
Okay, so Jesus said, I'm sending you the Spirit, which is the incarnation of God, right? Delivered to us.
Yeah.
And it's the seal.
In us.
Right, in us. So I'm sending the Spirit for 2 reasons. To convict you and to comfort you. So embedded in conviction, I don't think that's just about when you're wrong. I think conviction is also about confirming the truth. If you hold to my teachings, who I am, the Spirit will help you know who I am and what's going on. So conviction is about knowing what the truth is. It's about being able to discern. Also, it's about knowing when you're wrong.
Okay, now,
so,
part of, excuse me, that you had a
so you
closing
can't,
thought?
conviction and comfort, if you've ever seen somebody be comforted, those are 2 things you cannot fake.
Right.
I will know if you're really convicted or you're really comforted. It will reveal itself in how you live, in who you are. Fruits of the Spirit, you can fake that. And I can tell you, I've talked to hundreds of leaders who had all those fruits but were diabolical and murderous to people behind closed doors.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've known Christian leaders who have lived in sin for years before they got caught or found out, and they'll tell you that they thought they had a special arrangement with God because nobody was calling on them.
Right.
But the person who doesn't have any peace in their life today, and they know the Spirit is still there telling them that you have this addiction, whatever it is. According to this scripture, you're going to have to confess it. Because the healing won't take place
That's right.
until you confess it.
That's right.
So I want to encourage you, get to somebody you can trust.
Absolutely.
That's the big thing.
Huge thing.
Let them anoint you with oil and pray and confess it and let the healing take place.
So here's a caveat, though.
Okay.
It says the elders of the church.
Right.
Okay. In my experience, just because somebody's an elder doesn't mean they're qualified.
You know, we need to do that show.
We do need to do that show.
Because the Timothy Titus qualification of an elder, we've replaced them with people who are popular in the community.
Or whatever. And so if you go to somebody who's got a position, but here's the other thing, you have to use discernment. Whether or not that person actually...
Why'd you bring that up? That's a sore spot.
Sorry. But because I've seen so much damage, Perry, that's why I bring it up.
I have to.
And if somebody's at the verge of taking this risk, I don't want it blowing up in their face. I had a woman sit in my office last week, been a Christian 30 years, and said to me this, and it's not the first time I've heard this. If I had not become a Christian in high school, I would have not received all of the trauma that I've received in my life. All of the trauma I've received has been the result of being a Christian, from Christians and churches. And I wish I could say that was the only time I ever heard that. Okay, now, does that mean every church is doing that? No, but it is happening. So we can't deny the fact that that's real. So the person who's going to go, use your judgment, use your discernment. If you know that someone's safe, that's why I love some situation like, Foundations of Recovery. Pretty much I can guarantee those people are going to get it because they know, right? That's what they do. They're called to this. They love this. AA, same thing. No one's going to judge you. No one there has any rights. So you have to make sure that the place you go is safe. And just because someone is a church leader does not mean they're safe.
Okay.
You have to make that discernment.
Okay, so you make the discernment, but I think the act that we're trying to talk about here is the word confess one to another.
Right.
Now, part of that is getting it out. Two is it's submitting yourself vulnerably to somebody else.
Right.
I do know that people, once they confess to me, I'm no longer in their life. Do you ever have that happen?
Never. Not one time.
You know what I'm saying? Because once they confess, they go, now he knows. I'll just avoid him.
Yeah.
But if you can confess to somebody, say, I'm glad to take it and release it to God.
Yeah. And so here's the other thing is that no addict is going to get better without support.
Yeah.
They need people around them who are manipulation resistant, have some strength, and will tell the truth, and are able to hold the hold the line, right, if the addict starts to waver, and the addict has the right, the freedom to be honest. This is how I'm feeling. I mean, if it wasn't for people in my life when I was recovering that I could go and just have a conniption fit on, because I had a lot of conniption fit feelings. I was in a lot of struggle, and I used to tell, I used to be told by one of my friends that was helping me, he's like, sometimes you just have to chain yourself to something that doesn't move, because in 10 minutes, how you feel is going to change. Okay. But if you act on the intensity of how you feel at that moment, you're going to go back down that path. And so you have to have people around you that you can trust, that will support you and be honest. So that support is not a capitulation. It's based on what's true, what's healthy, what's good.
Accountability.
Yes.
All right, we're going to run out of time here, but I'm going to lay a big question on
Okay.
you. I think most of the people that we're talking to may be fairly mature Christians.
Yes.
And they got this hidden part of their life.
Yeah.
In some way, spiritually, they're bipolar. Paul struggled with it.
Yeah.
Romans 7, he said, I end up doing the things that I don't want to do.
That's everybody's struggle.
I mean, so you got this side of your life that you're struggling with, you don't have peace over, and then you feel, you're having a hard time thinking it's conviction or guilt, but you feel guilty that you're representing Christ in the Christian life when in fact there's this department in your life that's hidden.
So
what do you say to that person?
Secrets keep you sick. And you're only as sick as your secrets. So God is truth, right? He's not into the lie. So the lies that I'm holding on to, the secrets I'm holding on to, are fuel for the committee, which beat me up and tell me what a terrible person I am. And then after a couple rounds with the committee, I'm really looking forward to getting a drink or eating some food or isolating or playing a video game or whatever. So that internal chatter that's negative and about how terrible I am, that becomes the engine for my compulsive behavior. Now, does the gospel say that I'm a piece of junk that God's mad at and he's sick and tired of, and he's waiting for me to get it together? And no, the gospel says that he came to save me in full knowledge of who and what I am. He's not missing any of the information. He knows every thought, every deed that I've done has been done to me. He is not missing anything. And he's like, I love you. I've taken care of it. Come here. Let me help.
Let me just say to the person who is feeling this today, get on your knees where you are at the moment, confess it to God, and then take the next mature accountability step and confess it to somebody you can trust.
Yes, absolutely.
Start the process.
Yes, exactly right. And I'm telling you,
got about a minute.
The freedom that I have received in my lifetime from confessing what I thought would destroy me is why I'm sitting here. And I've had to confess, Perry, multiple times. And here's the other thing I would say. If you confess once a year or once a quarter, you're way behind because you sin every day. So I would encourage people to stay out of addiction, to stay out of a disrupted peace life, no peace. You must confess on a regular basis.
Yeah, if you pray the Lord's Prayer, there's confession in there.
Yeah, but not just to him. I say you have to confess to the people you've harmed. Yeah. And that will bring you freedom, and you won't have to look over your shoulder.
Okay, let me say, you can watch this program again at the Dove website at thedove.us. It'll be archived up there. If you're a Roku, if you have a Roku, it'll be archived there. You can watch it again and then share it with your friends. I would encourage you to, if you know somebody that's struggling, take this show and get the YouTube address and send it to them and get it over there. Patrick, thanks.
You're welcome.
Powerful stuff. And Veritas Counseling, 541-622-6018.
6018. Way to go, Perry. Or you can go to veritascounseling.com.
Yeah, or just go to the dove.us.
Or dove.us,
All right. I don't know what you got next time, but that was hard to beat today. All right. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.